Welcome in to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got the privilege to read a really, really great book over the weekend. It's called Lake County, and it is a new crime novel that's out there. And I tell you what, we're going to save the description of it for bringing in our guest. Our guest today was written by Lori Roy, and I'll tell you this much. It has to do with a small town in Florida. And it has to do with a girl by the name of Addie Anne Buckley and her glamorous Aunt Jean. And we'll put it this way. Her Aunt Jean has some ties to Hollywood. And I want to bring in Lori Roy and discuss her Aunt Jean and who Aunt Jean is supposed to be. And we'll go from there because I found it fascinating. There's some real world ties to Aunt Jean and who Aunt Jean is supposed to be. And we take these real world ties and we extend these real world ties maybe into some fiction. And where we go with this fiction is into I'll put it this way, into an imaginary place that is absolutely wonderful. And I found the story to be imaginative, wonderful, and a read that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. Lori Roy's debut novel, which was Bent Road, was awarded the Edgar Allan Poe Award for Best First Novel by an American Author. Her work has been twice named a New York Times notable crime book and has been included on various best of and summer reading lists. Until She Comes Home was a New York Times editor's choice and a finalist for the Edgar Allan Poe Award for among the top fiction of 2015 by Books A Million and named one of the best 15 mystery novels of 2015 by Oline Cogdill. The novel also received the 2016 Edgar Allan Poe Award for Best Novel, making Lori Roy, our guest, the first woman to receive an Edgar Award for both Best First Novel and Best Novel, and only the third person ever to have done so. Gone Too Long was named a People Magazine Book of the Week and an Oprah Magazine Best Book of Summer of 2019. Lori Roy lives with her family in West Central Florida. Let's welcome in for the first time ever to True Crime Tuesday, Lori Roy. Hi, Lori. How are you doing?
Hi, good. It's great to be here.
Lori, I got to tell you how much I really, really enjoyed this book in that you've managed to take reality and spun a story that is so wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And you've brought it to fiction, yet I truly do believe that these characters are that this is a real life story. I really do believe this is a real life story. When I got done with it, I wanted to cross-reference this on Google and see if it really happened, if this was real life. I totally bought in 100%.
That's interesting.
I guess.
Well, I love hearing that.
I guess I wanted the first question I have for you is, and I guess we'll describe to people what it is I'm talking about in a moment. What was it that made you want to take Aunt Jean, and we'll describe who Aunt Jean is in a moment. What was it that made you want to take Aunt Jean as this character and flesh it out further and create a new fictional story about her?
Well, until we kind of give away who Aunt Jean really is, I guess it's a little hard to talk about. I took many different stabs at Aunt Jean, I'll put it that way, about who she was going to be. I knew she was going to be an actress who comes to this small town in Central Florida. Lake County is a real county in Florida, for those who don't know. And that I saw this actress coming to this small little town to visit her pseudo family whenever she needed to be sort of put back together again after, from her very hectic, demanding life of fame. So I considered many different ways. And when I finally decided who Aunt Jean was, I made that decision only after giving myself this litmus test that if Aunt Jean was going to be the Aunt Jean that I ultimately used, she had to be that person for a reason. So can I just say who it is?
Yes, please do.
I'm finding it difficult. I don't want to be coy with your listeners. So Aunt Jean is known to the rest of the world as Marilyn Monroe. But she's been coming to this small little town since she was like 18, 19 years old, when she was still Norma Jean. So that I wanted to give her the one place in the world, a place I don't think she had in real life, where she was just Jean. She wasn't the glamorous Marilyn. And I wanted to see who she was and give her that. And my litmus test was, I'm only going to have it be Marilyn if it's Marilyn for a reason. I'm not going to use her as a gimmick.
Right.
That went against the author code of conduct for me. And so I brought her on the page and I said, I'll just give it a go. And right away, I felt so at ease with her. Her character was very forthcoming with the good traits, the not so attractive traits. And she had a lot to say. She ends up carrying a couple of the larger themes of the book.
Yes, she does.
So yeah, I considered other options. I like just a fictionalized version, or I considered all kinds of things. Did a lot of research in making that decision.
The beautiful thing about you bringing her in, and I think it was a genius move of you to bring her in, is the fact that I think it's been well established now in different both books and movies, is that Marilyn did have different sides to her personality, and I think you used that trope to play it well into this book, that she could use those different personalities. And I think you used it brilliantly in the book to use it in different scenarios and situations. I just wanted to tip my cap to you in that you used it brilliantly in different scenarios. And again, we'll let people read the book to figure out how you did that. But
Thank you.
And the other thing I tip my cap to you about is that she's not the focus of the book, really. The focus of this book is on Addie Anne Buckley, who is the niece of Aunt Jean, who is in the small town and dreaming to get out of this small town. She's young, she's in her teens, but she sees her Aunt Jean and sees her as this glamorous starlet who is what she aspires to be. She doesn't want to be in the small town, does she?
Mm-hmm.
And
she doesn't. She.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, she's desperate to escape this small town. She loves her mother, as she puts it, but she doesn't want to live her mother's life. And so she thinks this, following her Aunt Jean, that's her path out. She's been studying. She's very hardworking, determined, kind of quiet, went through the awkward stage, but she's worked very hard, studied scripts, an actor prepares. She's really very serious about wanting to get out. And that's where we are when we come into the book.
Now, she's got her own complicated type family life. Her mother and father are good examples. They're good, hardworking people. They're down to earth people. It would be the type of situation where you do feel sorry for her, but in a way you don't. I mean, because, she does have good family around her. She's got a loving mother and father who are, they have the perfect relationship. It's almost one of those relationships where you can look at it and say, you've got two loving parents who they want to take care of you. You've got a younger brother who is almost like a little savant. I mean, he's a little needy. I mean, I guess you could put it that way. He needs his sister, for lack of a better term, And so you've got a close-knit family. You've got a good family structure. And she wants to upset that apple cart, And that, to me, that could go wrong for you as far as the character goes. You know, you want to be the one to turn everything over. How do you keep Addie Anne from becoming a villain in that case? How do you keep her as a hero?
By making her, she's doing it because she's brave enough to dream. And she doesn't belittle her mother's life, but at all. She just dreams of something more. And then, of course, the question is, be careful what you dream for. And then what you want, think hard about how to really get what you want. So, but I think it takes a lot of courage to go after a dream. Mm-hmm. And so I saw her as a courageous person, but you're right. I didn't want it to be that she has a terrible family, so she's escaping.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be her choice, her inner drive of what she wanted for her life. And I enjoyed Addie on the page.
Yeah, I did as well. Now, Addie does have a boyfriend that her father especially does not approve of, and his name is Truitt Holt. And Truitt,
yes,
you could say Truitt is even though he means well, he's essentially a good kid. He is from the wrong side of the tracks. Can you tell us a little bit about Truitt Holt?
Yeah, Truitt lost his father young. It's just he and his mother. And he feels the need to provide for his mother to help bring in money. So Truitt runs a small little bolita game in Lake County. And bolita, because a lot of people won't know what that is, it was very popular. I think it's still played in Florida in some ways. It was very popular back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, a game of gambling, sort of the very first lottery, so to speak. You bet on numbers, and then every so often they pull a number out of a bag, and that number wins. And that was very heavily controlled by organized crime in Florida during the 30s, 40s, 50s, during this whole era, and it brought in an enormous amount of money. There were like crimes between the factions, like warring mob heads for control of bolita because it brought in so much money. So Truitt running a little game on the side in Lake County, he's always had to be careful because if the mob ever found out, they would be wanting a piece of that, and they might be wanting a piece of him for doing it. And but he's doing it because he wants to help his mother put groceries on the table.
Yeah. So he means well, and he keeps it quiet, and he does a very good job of keeping it quiet. And he's always had a little extra cash in his pocket, but manages to keep it very, very quiet. So there's this budding romance between Truitt and Addie Anne, and they manage to keep it quiet and away from essentially both their families. Both their families don't know. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes, that's pretty accurate.
With the idea that if their families know, then what? Is it Addie Anne's father Hardin who has a problem with Truitt? Why does he have such a problem with Truitt?
Well, I don't want to get in too much into that because of some plot spoilers.
Sure, okay.
But Addie Anne's father has a problem with the family that Truitt comes from.
Okay.
He worries about what kind of man Truitt will be. He's like, he wishes the kid well. He just doesn't want the kid marrying his daughter.
Okay. Now, Truitt does have a stepfather in the sheriff that's in town, correct?
Well, the sheriff is in a relationship with Truitt's mother, but they're not married.
Okay, they're not married. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So so Truitt is, in his mind, the man of the house, even though the sheriff has long been around Wiley to help out, which Truitt doesn't always. He kind of wants to flex his own muscles, and so yes, the sheriff is in Truitt's life.
Okay, all right. So does that, in your eyes, when you, from the outside looking in, as you're writing these characters, does that to you complicate things when you're writing these characters, or does that make things? Explain that situation or that complication to me, because as I read it, I get, but I don't get their relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Between Truitt and the sheriff?
Yeah. I mean,
well, so yeah, as Truitt is becoming a man in his own right, I think to me, it's he's wanting to establish his place in the world. And he doesn't want, Truitt idolizes the father he lost very young. And no one wants to ruin that for him. What good does that do? Mm-hmm. But the other people around him know that maybe Truitt's father was not a man who deserved to be idolized. So for Truitt, here the sheriff is coming into his home, maybe telling Truitt what he can or can't do, or trying to give Truitt guidance. And as Truitt is flexing his own muscles and coming into his own as a man, he doesn't want to be told those things by someone who isn't his father. So what is he, maybe 19 years old? Mm-hmm. He's still a kid.
Yeah.
Truitt is. So yeah, there's some coming of age for Truitt as well as for Addie. They're finding his footing, okay, so to speak.
Okay. So when we pick up in the book, Addie Anne is getting kind of excited because her birthday is coming, and her Aunt Jean is coming mm-hmm. to town, and she's getting excited because there is a trip being promised for her birthday. Tell us a little bit about this trip and what she's expecting.
Okay, so Addie is about to turn 18, and her Aunt Jean, Marilyn Monroe, has gifted Annie a trip. They're going to hop on a train. They're going to go out to Hollywood. This is over like 4 or 5 weeks. They're going to go to Hollywood, and then they're going to circle through New York, where Addie and Marilyn are going to walk the red carpet in one of her films that's getting ready to premiere. And then the plan is that Marilyn and Addie will come back to Lake County. What nobody knows is that once Addie gets on that train, she's not coming back. Once she gets out on this trip, she plans to tell Aunt Jean, I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to start this new life. So that's where we are when we come into the book. They're preparing for this trip, and Truitt is not initially going with Addie, but he's going to join her once she gets settled until he changes his mind. And that's where the story, we twist the status quo and the story begins with that scene where Truitt has changed his mind, and now Addie has some decisions to make.
And it's a very heart-wrenching scene at that. It's the best way to describe it is you at first you see it's very, the relationship's very hot and heavy, and you feel that teenage love. That it's more than puppy love, you know that when you see it. I mean, you see that the two have a very real love for each other, and it's at that moment that it almost feels like desperation on Truitt's part when he sees that he's losing her, that she's really going forward with it, that she's not coming back. And then he realizes, well,
absolutely,
he has a responsibility to his mother, that he does need to stay there, that he needs to keep supporting his mother. And almost like he has a mistrust of the fact that Wiley will keep looking after his mother. That he's got to be the one to look after his mother because, after all, he's the man of the house. So it's almost like he's forcing...
There is that, yes. Yes.
Yeah, so it's almost like he's causing himself to choose at this point. And he makes the responsible choice, which is, I have to look after my mother. And if she's really going to run off, then I've got to let her run off. And so at this point, he pushes Addie Anne away. And you realize as a reader, it's the wrong decision. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think whereas Addie is the kind of person who wants to, has a dream and she wants to strike out and see what else is in the world. And she's got that yearning and that hunger to do that. Truitt just doesn't look at life that way. He's got his bolita game, which he has dreams for that. And he does feel a responsibility to his mother, and it makes him nervous, the idea of striking out and going somewhere he has no idea where. That's kind of the two different, there are two different approaches to life at this moment of, we're out of school, now the new life begins, the grown-up life begins, and Addie wants one thing, and Truitt gets to the point where he can no longer pretend he wants the same, because now it's time to get on the train and leave. And that's what really pushes him into the corner. And he says, look, I'm not going. Mm-hmm. I have to stay. And if you love me, you'll stay and marry me. Yeah. And those were fighting words for Addie. Yeah. When he said that. Yeah. And it creates probably unneeded and unwanted tension there. I mean, they're too young to be talking about marriage yet. They should be letting it unfold naturally, right? I mean, well, yeah, but keeping in mind this is the 1950s in a small Florida town. True. So, that was not uncommon that you would graduate high school and get married. So sure, they were too young. As a mom, I'm thinking you're way too young.
Right.
But those were a different measuring stick back then.
It just seems like they upped the ante way too soon, though. It just seems like they jumped to conclusions when they didn't have to. But understandable. Yeah. Tell you what, Lori, we're going to take a break right here. When we come back, of course, in this novel, there had to be a crime involved in order to up the antes in this novel as well. We haven't talked about one character that pushes that fulcrum. We'll talk about that character when we come back. There's someone in Aunt Jean's life who ups the stakes. We'll talk about him when we get back. The book is amazing, folks. It's called Lake County, and it's out right now. We have a link in the description of this program, and I encourage you to go get it while we're in the break. Lake County is available right now, and folks, I tell you, wonderful book. So go get it right now. When we come back, we'll talk to Lori about this one character who's in Aunt Jean's life, and he's as toxic gets, and he's almost impossible for Aunt Jean to get hold of. Is he truth or fiction, though? We'll talk to Lori about him when we get back, right here on the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. Welcome back to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Lori Roy. She is the author of this wonderful, brand new book called Lake County. And it revolves around Addie Anne Buckley and her Aunt Jean. And of course, we've been told in the first part of the program that Aunt Jean is secretly Marilyn Monroe, who is her famous aunt, who's out in Hollywood, who's coming to Lake County to take Addie Anne for her 18th birthday on this wonderful 6-week trip to celebrate her birthday. But Addie Anne doesn't plan on coming back to Lake County. If anything, she plans on starting a new life. But unbeknownst to her family that this is going to happen. She plans on escaping and starting her new life. There's a little hitch in the get-along, though, Lori, and that is that Aunt Jean has, let's just call it a hanger-on, someone who's been with her since she was young, also been in Marilyn's, we'll just call it adopted sister's life, Inez, who is Addie Anne's mother. And that is a guy by the name of Siebert Ricks, who is a photographer who has also latched on to Aunt Jean, who is also Aunt Jean's boyfriend. Can you tell us a little bit about Siebert Ricks and who he is?
So Siebert Ricks is a purely fictional character. There was a photographer in the real Marilyn Monroe's life that she was very close to, but this has no bearing on him or any of that. He's totally fictional. He is a fella. So we have Marilyn Monroe when she was Norma Jean in the in and out of orphanages in LA as a child. That's when she meets Inez, who is Addie Anne's mother. Inez was also she's a little older, but she was also in the orphanages. That's where she meets the little Norma Jean. They also meet a young Siebert Ricks at this time. And starting that young, Siebert, with just a broken down camera that didn't even work, would pretend take pictures of a little Norma Jean, and even then she sort of craved the attention of the camera. And so he's been with her since this time in their childhood. And all he is the guy who takes he's like her official photographer. So if you think of out in Hollywood, in the business and the movies and the circles, the social circles, he is the guy who's always at Marilyn's side. He's the guy kind of always working a deal off Marilyn's fame. So without Marilyn, he's nothing. He's a photographer, but if it weren't for his connection to her, and as much as he maybe doesn't want to admit that, and certainly not openly, somewhere deep down inside, he knows it. And that makes for a very desperate man. And that is at the heart of Siebert Ricks. Anybody making their way to the top by exploiting someone else, trampling someone else, that's a desperate and dangerous person. And he is desperate and dangerous in our story.
And he never lets Norma Jean too far away from his sights. She may stray from time to time. He may let her go try to find herself from time to time and come back to Lake County. But he doesn't let her stay in Lake County for very long before he comes around to take her back to LA, does he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he knows her, fame is a very, insidious thing. It's very addictive. And so he knows how to sort of push those buttons with Marilyn, like, you don't want people to forget you and no one's writing about you anymore. That sort of, he knows, he probably does in a way know her better than anyone in her life. And he knows how to control her because he has to, because he has nothing else. He is nothing without her.
You do an excellent job of painting a very codependent relationship between the two, though, as well. You have a way of showing that she also depends on him. She depends on him just as much as he depends on her. And that it very is.
Yes. And yes. Right.
Yeah. It's very much a two-way street. It's not just him and the abuses that he puts on her, not only mentally, but physically, because there's some physical abuse there as well. There's an incident that I'll ask you about here in a moment that's very, very important to the book. But there's also, she also has a need to glom onto him, to not just fuel her ego, but to, he's not a stabling influence. I think she almost needs the, it's a good way of putting this, Lori. In codependency, we have a need for danger, we have a need for a thrill, and we have a need for an instability as much as a stability. So he provides both. You know, I mean, there's deep psychological things that you look into when you look into codependency. He fills them all. You know, without you state that without stating that you know, without coming out and saying, well, the two are codependent. You state it without stating it, which is a wonderful thing. You don't beat us over the head with it, but it's there. It lies in between the ink, you know, in between the pages, that this is a very codependent couple. Mm-hmm. But they definitely need each other in a very toxic way. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, you know, that's where you know, when people talk about character driving the plot, that's, I mean, the way you're putting it, it's a good example of what we strive to do. You know, I didn't sit down and list all the things that create a codependent relationship, mm-hmm. but they both have their needs, their weaknesses, and what they want in life and what they need in life. And so for Marilyn, when she starts to feel like she needs a hit of that fame that is her reassurance, it's the way she feels validated, like she needs that external hit. Well, it's like the drug.
Yeah.
He's the one who's like, yeah, I have it. I will get that for you. You need me to be sure you stay on top. You need me to be sure that, you know, you get what you want in the next big movie and the next big paycheck and the next, you know, the greatest man that you know, the most powerful man or whatever she aspires to get. So anyway, it's just building characters that you define what they want and what they need.
And the price for getting that hit is literally to get hit. She suffers certain abuses at his hands. There's an incident in the book that you referred to where he shows up at the home, and it's earlier in their history, where he's not allowed at the home of the Buckleys because he essentially trespasses upon the home when Norma Jean is staying there. And he essentially rips her arm out of the socket, trying to get her out of that home and get her back to LA to make him money. Mm-hmm. And it's at this point that, I mean, do you want to tell the story? Is it too much to tell the story? Do you want to get into that?
Well, yeah, it's an example to really establish this idea that he truly is nothing without her. You know, his whole livelihood, his whole ego, his whole id, or what, you know, I don't know all the psychological terms. Everything he is as a man really depends on him keeping control of her. So when that is threatened and he feels he's losing control, that's how desperate he becomes. So there is a part of him that understands he's nothing without her. Because if he really believed in himself, he would just, okay, she wants to quit, I'm going to go drum up another, client or whatever. But that's just how desperate and, to me, weak he is. Mm-hmm. That he's trying to force her and control her physically in that moment that he's trying to get his control of her, both physically and just control of her to go back to work and let him continue pretending that he is something other than feeding off of her career.
So Siebert is pulling the strings when it comes to Norma Jean. And he is the only one who in Lake County is calling her Marilyn. There's nobody in Lake County who calls her Marilyn. They call her Jean. And that is her place where she's grounded. When he comes in, it's Marilyn, and he tries to pull her back to L.A., so to speak. We talked about a little bit about there's that point where Addie and Truitt have come to that point where they've decided they're not going to be together, so to speak. And that happens at a fateful trip to the grocery store when Addie and Jean go to the grocery store to pick up some things for dinner. And they're in fear of the fact that they may run into Siebert, is essentially what it is. Mm-hmm. And Addie is keeping a close eye on Jean, or trying to keep a close eye, but realizes she may run into Truitt at the store. This is before the breakup. And she's splitting her focus, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Can you describe that scene a little bit for us and a little bit?
Yeah. So this is when we first meet Addie and Jean. And they're coming into this store, and because the scene that we just talked about where Siebert, physically hurts Marilyn, that happened in the past. So as they're going about town, about their daily lives, they're just always on guard because he's hanging around town waiting for Jean to get ready to go back to Hollywood. That's known. That's a rule in the family. You keep an eye out. If you see him, go the other way, avoid the situation. And they get in this store, and there's some playfulness we see between Jean and Addie because they're not that different in age. Addie's now almost 18 years old. I believe Marilyn at the time was about early 20s. And no, I guess, later 20s. And Addie is making her way through the store to go buy a magazine that has Marilyn's face on the cover. And that's when she meets up with Truitt. And so that's what splits her, distracts her, as a young man will distract a young woman, that they're in love. And during that distraction, she suddenly realizes, or she hears someone call out her name, and she realizes she forgot all about keeping an eye out for Siebert, and she has to go. Aunt Jean has found herself in some trouble, which Addie will go and discover, and that is another one of our inciting incidents, to use a screenwriting term, of what kicks off the story, was the trouble that Aunt Jean has found in the grocery store.
Okay. So at this point, I guess, do we talk about the crime that gets Truitt in trouble? Do you want to get into the incident that gets Truitt in trouble?
Well, I'll say this. It's Truitt has he's very diligent about running his business very carefully. This is his bolita business that he's running under the mob's nose, so to speak, because they're not getting a cut of it. So he's very careful how he does things. He only sells tickets to people he knows. And all that is because Sheriff Wiley and his mother have told him, look, if you're going to do this, you have to be careful because they really don't want him doing it anymore. Well, he's not careful enough. And he gets himself in some trouble. And don't want to give away too much because that's a fun scene, and I worked awful hard on it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So Truitt,
I want to surprise people.
That's right. So Truitt does get into a little bit of trouble and needs to get himself out of it. And the interesting thing is that he's now separated from Addie. The one thing I find that's it's almost heartbreaking about the book here, Lori, is the entire time Addie and Truitt are separated from each other as they're going through their trials and tribulations. And each one has the other one on each other's heart. And that is heartbreaking. I mean, to know that the two of them are thinking about each other the entire time. And you'll see as you go through the book.
It is. And
you know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Oh, just that.
No, it was just that.
Oh, that you'll see it, and I think you can relate to it. You can relate to it if you have someone special in your life, as you go through your trials and tribulations in life. That you know when you're going through a tough time, you wish that certain someone was there as you're going through it. If you're separated from them, or if if you've ever worked a job where you're a long distance away from someone that you love, or if maybe you've been arguing with someone that you love and you wish that you wouldn't have, or you're going through a tough time with someone you love and you're going through other things and you just know you've been a bonehead or something to that effect. You can totally relate to what's going on in the book, and it just hits home when you read it, and you're just like, so no, it's beautifully written. So is what I was going to say. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt there, Laura.
Well, thank you. I was just going to say it all stems from, Addie has worked for so long toward this goal of hers of having this bigger, different, splashier life. She just is so hungry to see what else is out there. And Truitt is just not that person. And what I liked with Addie, and what was important, is that she didn't just immediately give up what she wanted for Truitt. It broke her heart. It made her feel like maybe he never really cared for her anyway. But she stuck to what she wanted, because these aren't flimsy dreams. She's not a flighty young woman. Whether or not she has what it takes to make it, as an actress, we don't know, but we know that she's worked at it. She's read her Aunt Jean sends her scripts. She studies books on acting. Aunt Jean tells her, make every place you go a stage. So she will do that. She'll pretend she's on stage. She'll pretend she's certain roles. And so I liked that about her, that she was heartbroken, but she had her dream and she didn't give it up. And I like that. I like putting that out in the world.
I think, and again, I encourage people to pick up the book, because there are so many interesting scenarios here. There's not only the romantic scenarios, there's life and death scenarios here, there's murderous scenarios here. And there are so many different double crosses I can't tell you about that will intrigue you, and you'll go, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. But it's
well, that's good.
It's incredibly interesting. The entire and you'll get into these characters, and not only that, but like I said, you'll read this book and go, when it comes to the Marilyn Monroe scenarios, did that really happen or didn't it? I mean, you'll actually question for a moment, did some of this history with Marilyn Monroe really happen? Because as I read it, it feels so true when you read the book that you go, I got to go back in history and research it, because it really did feel like it was part of her history, Lori. It really felt like you reached down and grabbed her actual true character and fleshed out part of her history.
Yeah. Well, that's thank you very much. I did when I refer to Marilyn's life before the book begins. I pulled from her history, as much as I could. I didn't want to get into painstaking detail, but and then, for example, the trip that she and Addie are going to go on, it coordinated. I don't remember which film it was, but it coordinated with, they were going to cap it off with an actual date of her premiere. And I don't remember, it might have been the 7-Year Itch. And Joe DiMaggio escorted her. They were divorced, but he still escorted her. So, like, those things really, those are true. That is Marilyn's life. Lake County that's all fictional, but the characteristics of Marilyn, the way she uses her voice, for example.
Yes.
The voice that we think of from Marilyn Monroe, that very soft, breathy voice, that was a creation.
Yep.
And some of my research said that it kind of initially came about because it helped her with a stuttering problem. Kind of like singing will help people that are working through stuttering. But she had another voice, and I did look long and hard to try to find an example of the difference in the Marilyn voice and just the Marilyn voice, her actual voice. Yeah. So in the book, when she's wanting to pacify someone or convince them or manipulate them or get her way, she slips into that, tilting the shoulder and using the voice and the walk, and because those were her tools in life. And so they're her tools in my book. And she was a shrewd, very intelligent person. That wasn't what most people were interested in her for back then, but she was. She was a voracious reader. She wrote her own stuff. So she knew how to make her way in the world, and that's how I wanted to use those same tools and tendencies as she makes her way through my story.
I think you got her incredibly accurately. I think in the scenarios you put her in, I think you used her personality incredibly accurately in those scenarios that you put her in. Like I said, it felt genuine. Everything you used her in felt genuine. That's why I said I almost felt like I had to go back and Google it to see if it actually happened. It felt that genuine. So I think that's probably the highest compliment somebody could pay you, is that they got fooled.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It really is, because I wasn't sure how I would do with writing. I mean, I haven't written a nonfiction character like that into a book. But she was just so comfortable. She was so happy to come on the page. Mm-hmm. And it was very organic. And I so appreciate you noticing those things and it was important to me to not make a caricature of her or limit her to being just this or just that, because none of us are. Right. We all have our different moods and our different tools in our toolboxes that we use. And so that was very important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, the book is out now, Lake County, and it's out by Thomas and Mercer. Again, go get it. I encourage you, go get it. It is an incredibly interesting story. And like we said, it doesn't just focus on Norma Jean, on Marilyn Monroe. It's really focused around Addie Anne Buckley and around Truitt Holt. And this incredible story of the two of them and the characters around them and the incredible crime that surrounds them, which I can't tell you what it is, but boy, when you find out, you are going to be shocked, and the twists and turns around it. And I think you're going to be incredibly satisfied, folks, by the time you get to the end of the book. Lori Roy, I want to thank you so much for being with me today on True Crime Tuesday.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure as well. Folks, it's time now for us to grab Mally Fox. It's time now for us to lighten things up a bit. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals.
It's Crayon News story time.
What happened with this dude, Christ Bearer? I heard he cut his penis off and then jumped off a balcony.
Suspect pulls gun from butt, shoots twice at Denver police.
What is your emergency?
I need help.
And what's the problem?
I'm too high.
You're too high?
Yeah.
It's a time you've all been looking forward to. It's time now for Dumb Crimes and Stupid Criminals. And with that, we need a co-hostess. We have the co-hostess with the mostest with us today. It's Miss Mally Fox. Hi, Mally. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to jump right into it today, Mally, because not only do we have our audience, first of all, has come forward and deluged us with interesting stories, but we have an expanded not safe for work section today.
Okay.
To Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals, and boy, is it sultry. That's all I have to say. It is an interesting Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals today. We start out, by the way, thank you today. I'm gonna do the thank yous right up front because they're lengthy. I'll put it that way. Thank you to Tony, Jim, Jeff. I know I'm probably missing a name in here, but thank you to everybody who sent stories this week. The list is pretty long, so I want to thank everybody.
What about your gift you sent me the photo of?
Oh, yes. By the way, folks, I did get a bag of dicks in the mail.
And it wasn't for me.
No, and it wasn't from Mally. Yes, I did get a bag of dicks. So
loved it.
Yeah, Mally loved it. She loved it. Yeah.
They look tasty.
I won't say whether a bag of dicks or any of the dicks reached my mouth or not, but yeah, I did get a bag of dicks. So thank you for the bag of dicks to that certain someone who sent it to me. I don't know if I'm worthy or not, but I'll just say yes, I did get a bag of dicks.
Candy's good for your diabetes.
It is. It's good for the diabetes. So, yeah. So, one way or another, somebody will enjoy a bag of dicks. Just saying. There you go. Okay, so here we go. An 81-year-old serial slingshot shooter is arrested after a decade of mischief, Mally. That's how we start off today.
Okay.
That's right. This kind of reminded me of my grandfather, to be honest with you. I don't know if I told you this or not, but he kept a slingshot to keep the raccoons away from the buffet he put out in the backyard. And then my uncle tried to talk him off the ledge and tell him, well, Dad, you can't put out a buffet and not expect everyone to eat. Mm-hmm. He put it out for the deer, but he was discriminatory against raccoons. But I digress. The neighbors are well aware of the problem, not my grandfather's, but this serial shooter, this 81-year-old. One showed the local TV station, KABC, 2 plastic bags of pellets collected from a yard over the years. That's right. The plastic pellets had been landing in the neighbor's yard. It had been happening for over a decade. Residents of North Enid Avenue in Azusa, California, would find a broken window in their house or a car or a telltale ball bearing nearby. Neighbors reported hundreds of dollars of damage. Sometimes, more alarmingly, a pellet would whiz by someone outside, nearly striking them, Mally. Yikes. It was, to say the least, a quality of life issue, as the police put it. It turns out the mayhem was the work of a serial slingshot shooter. Say that 10 times fast, according to the police. And now they say they've finally captured him. By the way, he's 81 years old. The suspect, Prince Raymond King, was arrested on Thursday morning. A slingshot and ball bearings was found on his property, which is on the block where the crimes were carried out. Neighbors were well aware of the problem. One showed the local TV station, KABC, 2 plastic bags of pellets collected from a yard over the years. Many times I came outside and I would find little BBs by the front door, so I'm very glad the person was caught. Another neighbor, Monica Palomino, told KNBC. Another neighbor, Deva Wan, told KCAL that she had seen King using a slingshot. We're not aware of any kind of motive other than just malicious mischief, Lieutenant Jake Bushy of the Azusa Police Department told the San Gabriel Valley Tribune. Efforts to reach King or a lawyer for him were unsuccessful. King appeared in the Citrus Municipal Court last Tuesday and pled not guilty. He was ordered to stay away from his neighborhood after collecting things from his home and was told not to contact any of the victims. He was released without bail and told to return to court on June 17th.
Well, he's definitely set in his ways.
81 years old, Melanie.
Mm-hmm.
81 years old and shooting that slingshot. God love him. Do you just take it away from him because he's 81 and say, don't do it again? Or
he's probably that crotchety neighbor that everyone has.
Yeah, probably.
Where nothing makes him happy.
Probably. Our next story has to do with an officer who got quite the shock while searching a vehicle for drugs. The officer saw a car with drug paraphernalia in plain sight, but then found something in a plastic tub. What was it, you may ask? Well, we're going to Wheat Ridge, Colorado, where a Wheat Ridge Police Department officer who was searching a vehicle at a trailhead this past week got quite a surprise when he opened up a plastic tub inside his car. This, again, another story we got from one of our great listeners. Body camera footage released by police on Tuesday show the moment when an officer opened the tub at Prospect Park and found a full-grown rattlesnake inside. Yay! I'm sure that officer was a little alarmed. He quickly shut that tub, by the way, and backed away. I don't blame that officer.
Exactly.
That's right. You've got a rattlesnake in here? He asked the vehicle's owner. Are you kidding me? The police officer went on to say. The wild moment happened Sunday night as the officer was checking park trailheads and saw a 2013 Toyota Camry with drug paraphernalia in plain sight. Around that time, an Uber driver dropped off the car's owner, who said they lent the car to a friend and were told to pick it up at that location. The owner gave the officer consent to search the car, which was when the officer found the snake. I'm sure he did give the officer consent to search the car. Dear God. There's a bleeping live snake in this bin, the officer said. It's rattling at me. Did you know about that? The officer told one of his colleagues on scene that the snake tried to snap at him and then asked the owners, does he have any other things that might bite me? In addition to finding the large venomous snake, the officer also found methamphetamine, tinfoil with burn marks that suggested fentanyl usage, and a gun. Oh, so the car was plumb ready to be arrested.
Yeah, it was fully loaded of tricks.
Yeah, and evidently the owner was going away for a while. The car's owner won't face charges, it says here, but investigators are trying to find the person who borrowed the vehicle. Oh, so it was borrowed, and whoever borrowed the vehicle put all that in it. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. The drug paraphernalia, drugs and gun were booked into evidence. The snake and other property were left in the car. And officers recommended to the owner that they take the snake to a 24-hour veterinarian, according to a Wheat Ridge police spokesman. Yikes.
How much do you want to bet that they just let it free in the woods?
I think we do have a story later on about, no, we don't. I skipped that story. There was actually a Florida DNR that said something to the effect of don't let live lizards free into the wilderness. It upsets the ecosystem. And there are people that are doing that.
Right.
They just get sick of these lizards. They get like big, and it's one of those things where people get tired because they get larger and they can't handle them, and they put them out in the ecosystem, and it ruins the ecosystem.
Huh. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I mean, people just, and I suppose they do it sometimes with snakes too. They just get too big and they just go, oh, it's too unruly for me, and they let them go, which is bad for the ecosystem because a lot of them, some people get these snakes that are just too big for the ecosystem, and you know, they forget that these things aren't natural to the habitat, and they end up making a horrible mistake. And that mistake is just that it's, again, not natural to the environment. And when they do that, well, you've upset the natural ecosystem of your area. And then you've created a nuisance, you know? So you just, it's just something you shouldn't do. I mean, it's, you know, the DNR would, not only can you be, I think you could be ticketed for it, if I remember right.
I'm sure you could.
You know, and you can come up on charges if they trace it back to you, which, you know, is not a good thing at all. This next story, Mally, I actually saw online as a meme.
Okay.
And it was kind of, to me, it was kind of funny, although it's one of the most, I got to say, it's one of the most obvious dumb crimes. One of those things that you should say, well, of course you don't do that, right? And actually, this is in your backyard in Michigan. A Michigan judge is astonished at how a man showed up to a virtual hearing for driving with a suspended license charge.
Oh, I saw this one.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
In fact, I think I have the video. Do I have the video up here
His
that I can
face
play?
when he gets caught. Oh.
Yeah, he's like, are you kidding me? A Michigan judge was astonished when a defendant charged with driving with a suspended driver's license dialed into a virtual court hearing while behind the wheel of a car. The video is just too funny. The May 15th hearing in Ann Arbor was for Corey Harris, whose case involved his suspended license. The assistant public defender introduced herself to Judge Cedric Simpson as Harris dialed into the Zoom hearing. Simpson asked the defendant, Mr. Harris, are you driving? He said, actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. I want to see if I can pull up the video here and play it for you because it's quite funny. Let me see if I can actually get this going here and play it for you. Let's see.
But it's his face that makes it.
Oh, his face.
Because you see him realize what an idiot he is.
Right. Let's see here. Let's see if I
Court
can.
calls case People versus Corey Harris.
Conrad Stiller on behalf of Pittsfield Township.
Assistant Public Defender Natalie Tate for Mr. Harris, who should be present via Zoom.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Hey.
The judge has this look on his face right now like, are you kidding me? You're driving? And
You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
All right. What are we doing?
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter, up possibly 2 to 4 weeks if the court would allow.
At this point, the lawyer's asking to adjourn the case to get rid of it.
So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And he was just driving. And he didn't have a license.
Oh.
That is with the charges, Your Honor, yes.
No, I'm looking at his
Yes.
record. He doesn't have a license. He's suspended and he's just driving.
That is correct, Your Honor.
The defendant just raised his hand. At this point, the judge is reviewing the case. He's looking down at the file. He's about to make a decision.
Hello?
1 minute, Mr. Harris.
The judge is about to. Here we go.
I don't even know why he would do that. So, defendant's bond is revoked in this matter. Defendant is to turn himself into the Washington County Jail by 6 p.m. today. Failure to turn himself in will result in a bench warrant with no bond.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Harris, I'll be giving you a call.
The look on his face is just priceless. But
it's just, oh my God.
Oh my God. He just tips his head back like, are you serious? I can't believe he did that. So when he does that, when he says, oh my God, Harris is heard whispering that in disbelief, his attorney says they'll be calling him soon. I can't believe that once his attorney looked at him, she still goes for the adjournment and sees that he's driving on Zoom. I mean, she had cojones just to say, let's adjourn this. I don't know, Mally. I mean, that's just.
Well, he had cojones because he's like, give me a sec as he's trying to park.
Right, yeah.
You're telling a judge to give you a minute.
I don't know why he would call from a car.
Oh, he's an idiot.
That's just horrible.
Yeah, you should post that video though, because his facial expressions are funny.
Yeah, I'm going to. I'm going to post this in the description of this program so you can see this guy. The video is just too priceless, so you can see the entire thing. Let's move on. A Ford Ranger gets dumpstered after blocking a garbage area. This happened in the Philippines. A Ford Ranger in the Philippines fell victim to the wrath of angry locals when it was found illegally parked in the designated garbage area. Trash bags were piled in the rear bed in the mid-sized pickup, effectively blocking it from both the front and the rear. The photo shows a white Ford Ranger parked on a street surrounded by piles of garbage, rendering it difficult to move. The unconventional retaliation saw the truck's rear bed completely filled with trash. One can only imagine the aromatic adventure awaiting the hapless owner upon its return. The smelly load appears to be lightweight for the truck's rear suspension, but takes up all of the available space. The owner must have had a bad time removing all the trash bags from the Ranger before heading off to a car wash. Thankfully, all of the windows were shut. So the interior should be unharmed. The incident took place in the city of Baguio, I believe, known as the summer capital of the Philippines. I know I probably butchered the name. The photo of the Ranger dumpster was originally published on Facebook by Barangay Pingat, which translates to the village of Pingat. The viral post that first came to the attention of MSN thanks to colleagues on Top Gear Philippines was later shared on the main profile of the city's local government unit with a stern reminder to errant car owners. Please make sure you do not park in areas designated by barangays for trash pickup, the message read, with a subtle jab at those most oblivious to parking or basic parking etiquette. And for those who missed the memo, a follow-up note reinforced the warning, hinting at consequences for future offenders. The guerrilla garbage tactic serves as a stark reminder of the Philippines' ongoing battle with waste management. Let me show you a picture here, Mally. This is what they did to this Ford Ranger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They were pissed.
Yeah. They basically stacked that Ford Ranger full of garbage.
Good, he deserved it.
Yeah, well, if they did that more often to people who parked illegally, I think most people would probably put their car where it belonged. So there you go. Our next story has to do with a man who misidentified himself when police pulled him over, and they basically gave him a chance to go directly to jail. What did the man identify himself as, Mally? Well, he identified himself as Mr. Monopoly. They told him at that point he could go directly to jail. After being After being stuffed into a patrol car, an accused vandal told police that his name was Mr. Monopoly and that he was born, of course, on 4/20/69. Investigators say that 33-year-old Ryan Howard was arrested Saturday evening for spray painting a wall in St. Petersburg, Florida. Of course, you knew we were going to Florida for this story, right? When officers confronted him, Howard had a bag slung over his shoulder containing spray paint cans that could be observed in plain view. Told that he was required to identify himself, Howard was initially mute. But after being detained, Howard stated Mr. Monopoly and provided a date of birth of 4/20/1969, that according to a cop. Howard was subsequently identified via his Maine driver's license. In addition to criminal mischief, Howard was charged with resisting, a misdemeanor, for providing cops with a fake name and date of birth. Howard had the chance to go directly to jail. He did not collect $200 and will be released from custody after officials collect a $1,000 bond. So there you go. Our next story has to do, again, with Florida.
Okay.
And took place actually a couple of weeks ago, where a Florida woman fled a car dealership during a test drive and ended in a reckless chase by jumping into a lake. Evidently, she really didn't want to be caught after she stole that car. We go to Miami-Dade County in Florida. By the way, this is the second story that's going to end with a woman jumping in a body of water in Florida.
Okay.
Just so you know. The Florida Highway Patrol has just released dash cam video of a high-speed chase in South Florida that ended after a woman jumped off a concrete ramp into the water below. As reported by NBC6, 27-year-old Melina Logan went to a Honda dealership in South Miami to test drive a vehicle. But when she refused to stop, Miami-Dade police and Florida Highway Patrol started their pursuit. In the dashcam video, Logan is seen driving recklessly, making aggressive lane changes, and speeding down the shoulder to pass vehicles at nearly 90 miles per hour.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a test drive. When Logan approached standstill traffic near the Northwest 25th Street off-ramp, she crashed into several vehicles before becoming disabled and pinned against the concrete ramp. To flee from officers, Logan got on top of the concrete ledge and jumped into the water below. According to NBC6, the woman refused to grab an officer's rope to be pulled out of the water, which led to several officers jumping into the lake to remove her forcefully. In the process, NBC6 says Logan scratched a Miami-Dade officer and pushed a Doral officer underwater. She really didn't want to get caught, Melly.
Just making it worse.
Exactly. The North Carolina woman was removed from the lake and booked into jail, facing charges that include grand theft of a vehicle, 2 counts of battery on a police officer, fleeing and eluding police, leaving the scene of a crash, and resisting an officer. According to NBC6, another driver had to be hospitalized after they were hit by Logan at the end of the chase. Now that is a test drive. This next one qualifies as a small miracle, Mel.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a dumb crime, but it's avoiding a dumb crime. We'll put it that way. We go to Colorado, where a man's silver chain saved his life after a bullet became lodged in it. A man's silver chain saved his life after a bullet shot at him became lodged in it, according to a Colorado police department. The chain, which is about 10 millimeters in width, is likely the only reason the unidentified victim of Tuesday's shooting is still alive, that according to the Commerce City Police Department. Commerce City is about 9 miles north of Denver. The .22 caliber bullet was fired during an argument and would have ended up in the victim's neck had it not instead become lodged in the chain that he was wearing, that according to police. As a result, he suffered only a puncture wound. Police did not provide any details about the argument between the victim and the suspect. The victim's current condition was not immediately cleared last Sunday. Police shared pictures of the bloodied chain on Facebook showing the bullet mangled within it. The suspect in the shooting, who police did not identify, was arrested at the scene and charged with attempted homicide. Police said they do not know exactly what material the chain is made of, but it's likely not pure silver. So maybe think twice before you knock a knockoff, police said. this is just incredible. Let me show you this chain, Mel, because this is what it looks like. This has got to be steel.
Right.
That can't be pure. It definitely isn't pure silver, because if the bullet would have hit it and it was silver, it would have drilled right through it.
Wow. Someone was definitely looking out for him.
That's true. Yeah. So, I mean, some people are good and some people are lucky. He was good and lucky that day. That's for sure. That's amazing. So we're going to go from one miracle to one person fighting for miracles who might have been on the wrong side of good. We'll put it that way. All right, Mally, it's time now for our not safe for work section of Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. And I'll warn you, it's a little lengthy today. So here's the deal. It's a long one, but a good one.
Okay.
All right. We're going to start it off by going to a different country, a country that's had a little bit of, let's just say, not so great relations with the United States. So in order to do this, we need you now to turn down your listening devices if you're at work, get the kids out of the room. We're going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, buckle in, kids. Here we go. North Korea is accused of launching a floating poop balloon attack, Mally. It's better than missiles.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, at least, you could, you can get under a roof and stay away from poop. You can't get under a roof and get away from missiles.
I know, but my gag reaction would be going.
I know, mine too.
Ugh. I would probably die right there from gagging.
South Korea's military on Wednesday accused North Korea of floating balloons loaded with trash and manure across the border and immediately demanded that Pyongyang halt its inhumane and vulgar operation. How would you like to live in South Korea and get hit with a shit balloon?
No, thank you.
More than 260 balloons have already been detected in South Korea since the operation began on Tuesday night. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said images released by the military appear to show the balloons carrying plastic bags. This is so juvenile. One of which had the word excrement written on the side.
At least they're labeling it correctly.
Yes, yeah. A JCS official told the Seoul-based Yonhap news agency that the balloons, all of which have fallen to the ground, carried trash, including bits of shoes, plastic bottles, and manure. No damage or injuries have been reported so far in connection with the balloons, but the military has deployed bomb disposal units and other experts to collect them. How would you like to be that guy who has that job? Residents have warned against touching the objects because you don't want to get poopy hands. I'm just saying. These acts by North Korea clearly violate international law and seriously threaten our people's safety, the JCS said, adding a stern warning to North Korea to immediately stop its inhumane and vulgar act. The balloons started arriving days after Kim Kang II, North Korea's vice defense minister, slammed propaganda leaflets criticizing the Pyongyang regime that North Korean defectors in the South have been attaching to balloons and sending northward for years. Oh, I see. So you send leaflets of propaganda over our way. We send you shit back. See what they did there?
Mm-hmm.
It's clever.
You're so funny.
The minister on Sunday... I'm sorry, I read that already. Mounds of waste paper and filth will soon be scattered over the border areas in the interior of South Korea, and it will directly experience how much effort is required to remove them, he said. That was the North Korea minister who said that. So there you go. We move on. We're going to Bangkok, Oriental City, where the city don't know what the city is getting. I'll tell you what it's getting. It's getting a loan shark couple who's been arrested in a naked photos case.
Okay.
This is actually pretty bizarre. We're going to Prachinburi, where a married couple operating a private loan agency was surrendered to Sri Maha Phat police in a Sri Maha Phat district at 1:30 a.m. on Monday to answer charges of posting naked pictures of debt defaulters online.
Oh, little blackmail.
Little humiliation is what it is. Yeah. The 31-year-old woman and her husband were questioned by Sri Maha Phat Station Chief Polkol Mankal Topau. That's his name.
I like how you added the last part.
Well, I was trying to get the last name right there.
I know, it just sounded, you were like, da-da-da-da-da.
Topau, right, for an hour. Afterwards, the woman said they were shocked by the situation and were not ready to answer reporters' question. Polkol Mankal said the couple surrendered after learning that authorities went to search their house in Tamban Ta Tum of Sri Maha Phat district on Sunday evening. They were in the northeastern province of Kalasin for merit making, and their house was locked up. The station chief said he advised them to surrender when they returned. The couple were charged with being loan sharks, posting pictures of naked people from computer systems and demanding repayment in an improper manner that damaged others' reputations. Polkol Mankal, first time I've ever read that in a news story, said the couple had no debtors in Prachin Buri. Earlier, a man who had allegedly borrowed 500 baht from the woman, suspect complained that his naked picture was sent to his 5 guarantors, who included his own mother. God, I think she's seen it. I think she's seen it before. It's not a big deal for her, right? He said that when he borrowed the money, the creditor ordered him to pose naked with his ID card and sign a contract allowing her to release his photo if he defaulted. That's just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. The creditor allegedly charged him 100 baht weekly interest. Oh, my God.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of weekly interest. The debtor said he paid the interest on time for 6 weeks. When he fell one day behind in the 7th week, his naked photo was released. The man is a native of nearby, I believe it's Chacho Engazo province. The creditor reportedly also ordered woman debtors to pose topless for pictures for the same purpose. So, Mally, I got to ask you this. How far do you go for a short-term loan from a loan shark?
I'll go to my parents first.
Does mom require the topless photo in order to give you the money?
No, she'll give me the money not to do the topless photo.
Okay, I was going to say, I would hope they'd be a little more
My dad's
tasteful.
A politician. They don't want anyone to
that's right. Yeah.
Make things difficult for him.
No blackmail photos from the princess in this household. That's
nope.
for sure. That's for sure. Okay. Our next not safe for work story involves a creepy not safe for work story. The headline is that a sex doll inside your body bag? That's right. A funeral home worker wanted to smuggle an adult item. He decided to do it that way. Investigators charged that a funeral home worker planned to use a body bag to smuggle a life-size sex doll out of the home of a man who died in his Nebraska residence. 42-year-old Ryan Smith was arrested in October for allegedly breaking into the Omaha apartment where the deceased man lived. At the time, Smith worked for Mid-America First Call, which handles removals, transportation, embalming, cremations, and ship-outs. As detailed in the recent court filings, Smith and a co-worker were dispatched to the Rock Creek Apartments to collect the decedent's body. Inside the unit, a sheriff's deputy noted, near the body on the bed was a very real-life size version of an adult female. Both of the males that came to collect the body made comments about the sex doll found on location, according to the arrest affidavit. Smith's initial entry into the apartment was with law enforcement personnel who subsequently locked and secured the home. Later that day, Smith allegedly returned to the residence carrying a body bag, telling apartment complex staff that he was acting on behalf of the sheriff's office and wished to collect the sex doll located inside the deceased tenant's apartment for evidentiary purposes. Additionally, he told workers that he was there to collect a stretcher he claimed was left behind. After Smith was let into the apartment a second time, a management official discovered the unit's front door was deadbolted and latched with a chain across the door. The complex representative confronted Smith, whose shirt was untucked and his pants were in disarray.
Oh.
Yeah, and told him that no property could be removed from the dead man's home. As he was leaving the Rock Creek development a second time, Smith reportedly asked a janitor when the manager of the apartment building left. The manager told the cops that she feared Smith was going to return to the complex and break in and steal the doll. Details about Smith's actions are contained in a judicial order filed last week denying his motion challenging a probable cause, finding that he committed attempted burglary. A district court judge found that Smith unlawfully entered the apartment with a body bag, which is indicative based on circumstantial evidence that he had intent to take the sex doll, an item of nominal value. Therefore, the court finds that the defendant committed a substantial step and a course of conduct intended to culminate in the commission of a burglary. A date for the next court appearance by Smith, who is free on bond, has not been scheduled. So, creepy corner takes a sex doll. Yeah. And a used one at that, Mal.
I know. That's what I was thinking. By a dead guy.
And he probably used it after the dead guy did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guy's desperate.
Speaking of desperate, I got another one for you here. This one has to do with a guy who was caught having sex with a woman's pink Tesla for 3 hours. For this, we go to South Korea, where a strange guy was filmed having sex with a woman's pink Tesla for a whopping 3 hours, but nobody was able to ask him why. Stranger yet, he wasn't charged.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. He was at a Hyundai store on Saturday, May 18th, and according to local news outlets, the weird man was spotted kissing, touching, and even fingering the car of the wife of a man who reported the incident. Posting the very odd CCTV clip on Korean social media, the man said, "The guy kissed my wife's car, fingered it for 3 hours, and ran off, only when my wife approached to get in the car. Even I tried to report this, and there's no way because there's no charge." You heard that right. There's no charge, folks. Maybe it'd be best to remove the pink wrapping. Wonder if it was triggering to mechanophiliacs. Mechanophiliacs is actually it's actually a term.
Right.
Yeah. Like sexy lingerie or something, the guy goes on to say. To make it more creepy, the man was also seen wearing a medical face covering, but he pulled it off when he knelt down to get up really close and personal with the innocent vehicle. The man's identity is unknown because he ran away before anyone could ask him what on earth he was doing. How he ended up doing it for 3 solid hours also remains a mystery, as does why nobody thought of stopping him sooner rather than later. Users on Korean media flocked to the comments, News One reports, stating that one said, "Wouldn't it make you feel ashamed if you did that?" And another asked, "Doesn't this apply to public indecency? He really did that for 3 hours?" According to Korea's law around obscenity, it is highly likely that the man, if caught, could end up in prison or face a huge fine. The law states a person who publicly commits an obscene act shall be punished by imprisonment for not more than 1 year, a fine not exceeding 5 million won, detention, or a minor fine. Although he's no Italian petrol pump guy, who's another guy who got busted for that, it's safe to say that it's pretty obscene. So there you go. And one last story here, Mally, before we leave you today. And this is the second story where a woman jumps in the water today. I told you there were 2 stories where a woman jumps in the water. A Florida woman who's all of 20 years old was caught having sex in public on a public pier and jumped into the water to escape cops. A Florida woman who was caught in flagrante, biggest word I'll use today, on a public pier in Naples, dived into the water in an attempt to get away from cops on a Monday afternoon. This was over the Memorial Day weekend, by the way. The escape didn't do 20-year-old Alicia Razzo much good, though. She was picked up by the beach patrol as soon as she made it to the shore, according to a police report. The Naples Police Department received multiple reports about a man and woman having sex behind the historic pier's locked gate at about 4:30 p.m. during the busy Memorial Holiday weekend. Razzo and Zadok Westfield, who's all of 23 years old, were still at it when officers arrived. As the two scrambled to put on their clothes, Razzo moved to the edge of the pier and jumped in, despite officers' commands to stay where she was. Westfield, who was completely naked when police arrived, stayed at the scene. At least one person knew how to understand directions. Mm-hmm. He told the officer that he and Razzo had swum to the end of the pier and intended to jump off, but wound up having sex instead. A witness told police she was enjoying the beach near the pier with her 4 children. That's right. They had children with them, ages 7 to 15, when they noticed Razzo and Westfield naked in the public spot. She told police her minor children were asking questions about what the subjects were doing. Razzo and Westfield were each charged with trespassing and disturbing the peace. Razzo was additionally charged with resisting arrest without violence. Both were taken into custody and bonded out the same day. The iconic pier, which juts out about 1,000 feet into the Gulf of Mexico, has only been partially open to visitors since it was severely damaged by Hurricane Ian in 2002. That does it for Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals today. Mally, what's going on ParanormalGirl.com?
Nothing much. I'm just right now packing to go to Sleepy Hollow this week, so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tomorrow, Jessica Freeberg is in for Supernatural News. And then Thursday, we have, I believe, Ron Felberg in. And we are talking about a very interesting book, which I will update you on tomorrow.
Cool.
It has to do with an old-time exorcism of a woman, Claire Fowler, who saw Jesus and the Virgin Mary at the same time. And there may even be some aliens involved.
Okay, interesting.
I'll just put it that way. So there's a lot going on this week. So there you go. That'll do it for today's True Crime Tuesday. I want to thank our guest, Lori Roy. You can pick up her book in the description of this program. Also want to thank Mally Fox for doing today's Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. So there you go. That'll do it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the best in true crime podcasting. This has been True Crime Tuesday.